If you're an individual and you sell and your profit is under a quarter mil, you'll still pay your 50% capital gains tax. But if you're a corporation, no matter what your profit is, your capital gains tax is the 2/3 now. If you are a business owner and you're getting ready to retire and you want to sell your business, you're going to have to pay the government, 2/3 there. It's like right off the rip. Welcome to another episode of the Refined Real Estate Podcast. Manny here and my co-host Ian. We're thankful for you guys for joining in and listening to this pod. This is going to be a cool one. We're going to be talking a lot about some changes that have happened over the past couple of weeks here in Canada in regards to taxes and just some political stuff. We don't really talk too much about political things, and we don't. It's a divisive topic, but this is some interesting stuff that just needs to be discussed. And we'll also give you guys a quick update on some cool stuff that we're doing down in the United States with that 97 unit building that we have under contract. But before we jump into everything, I just want to tell you guys to please like and subscribe on all of the platforms, whether it be Apple, Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or if you don't do any of those things, if you can at least share our podcast with a friend of yours. If you enjoy what we're listening to, it just helps us spread the message, helps us grow the community, and yeah, we greatly appreciate it. But with that all being said, Ian, how are you doing, man? How was the weekend?
Oh, doing well. Weekend's good. Yeah, a lot of busy with a lot of realtor stuff. Yeah, we had a trade show, so met a lot of contacts there. I got some of my listings up and going. That's again through Press Realty, not to be confused with Refined Real Estate, but yeah, so things are good. Market's definitely busy this time of year, even without the interest rates all coming down. People are still actively buying and selling and all that good stuff. So yeah, no, a good weekend. Nice to have the sun out, and yeah, feeling like spring more and more each day. What about yourself?
I had a similar weekend. It was pretty chill, to be honest with you. Just kind of caught up on some work that I've been slacking on, some bookkeeping. Obviously, I go to jiu-jitsu every weekend. Spend some time with the family, just kind of relax. It was a good weekend. It was chill. You need these ones every now and then. But
Absolutely.
with that all being said, I'm sure our listeners would have seen in the past week the federal government just increased the capital gains tax for corporations and also for people in their personal names, depending on how profitable the deal was. So currently what it's at is our capital gains tax is at 50% of the profits, and they have increased it to 66.7. So 2/3. This has the investing world up in arms, and for a good reason. This sucks. Canada's already one of the highest tax countries in the world. The carbon tax and the tax, they're going to tax everything they can. So I think I saw somewhere in Toronto, Ian, they want to do a rain tax. That blew my mind. Depending on how much hard surface you have on your property, they want to tax you in regards to the water. But but this capital gains one, this one's kind of hitting home. They've been talking about it for quite some time, and they finally implemented it. It's actually going to start to come into effect June 24th, I believe. So if you want to avoid this and you're selling some properties, you have a couple of months to do so and still pay the old capital gains tax. But yeah, Ian, what do you think about this, man? This is nuts.
Oh, it's crazy, and it's going to lead into some of the other points that I wanted to mention today. So, yeah, just chatting government. Again, we're not trying to be edgy or pokey or anything like that. This is just how we view it through our lens as people that are, relatively new in like the building wealth game. I mean, I've had my business now going on 12 years, been in multifamily for the last few years, but it's like, yeah, it's just getting tougher and tougher. And there's so many roadblocks out there. It just makes everything hard. And it's not just specific to real estate, but specific to trying to live and get ahead here in Canada. It's just yeah, it's very challenging. And a lot of people will say, well, I'm not going to have or not going to be concerned because it's like $250,000. But a lot of our listeners out there, even if you're just a smaller investor or anything like that, if you have an investment property and you hold that for, 10, 15 years, you're going to fall well within this category. So it's really tough. It's a little disheartening. Yeah, they're running out of ways to try and squeeze us, and it's I wouldn't say that we're the top 1%, 2%, or anything like that, and we're going to be the ones that are feeling this. So it's yeah, it's tough. I do understand the old, tax the wealthy, but like this is yeah, it definitely hurts.
It hurts a lot, man. And outside of just the real estate world too, like this is like an all-encompassing tax that will affect businesses all across the country. Because so if you're an individual and you sell and your profit is under a quarter mil, you'll still pay your 50% capital gains tax. But if you're a corporation, no matter what your profit is, your capital gains tax is the 2/3 now. So like if you are a business owner and you're getting ready to retire and you want to sell your business, you're gonna have to pay the government, 2/3 there. It's like right off the rip. So it de-incentivizes any kind of industry, whether it be real estate, whether it be business. And we need business. Like we need entrepreneurs to create jobs, innovation, all of these things. And all of these taxes, it's really disrupting that. And I've seen like on my Instagram, I don't know about you, but like I'm seeing so many Canadians that are, investors, whether real estate and business, that are so up in arms. And they're like, one guy specifically, he's like, I've started and created like half a dozen businesses in my lifetime. My next one, it will not be in Canada. So he's going to be taking his skill and his expertise elsewhere. And this is what these taxes do. This is just, it's not good for the country. I understand why they might be trying to do it. I don't know, to tax us more so they can, I don't know, use our tax dollars to kind of run the government, whatever they do with our money, because they're not spending the money appropriately. But that's another conversation. But this is just, it's not a good look for the country. Hopefully they kind of walk it back. I don't think it's like 100% official, but it's usually at this point it's probably going to go through. But we'll see what happens, man. I don't know. I think it's very discouraging.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I guess that leads into some of the other things that I wanted to talk about. So again, we're not just trying to harp on the government here, but there's certainly some things, some trends, and some unsettling stats out there that are really just showing you how difficult it is. So with that, I'll dive into some of them. So this was some of the information stuff that we've shared before, but just more so brought into the same spot. And it's just looking over like the last 8 years and where we've gone as a country and how that's not beneficial for the people of this country, and that there just has to be a change, whether it's government parties or whatever it might be. Yeah, it's just not working. It's not conducive to getting ahead. So yeah, on that. So in Canada, in the last 8 years, if you're looking at rent, mortgage payments, or down payments on a house, they have all doubled. Housing costs are like 25 to 45% more than the USA. And that's crazy. And why that's so crazy is the US has 8 times the population of Canada and a smaller land mass. So there's less of a natural supply and there's 8 times demand. So just right there, I'm just like, well, that it doesn't make sense. And it's like you can go to like Niagara Falls and you can look at the real estate prices on the houses on the Canada side. You can then drive 15 minutes and the prices on the US side for the same house are literally half. And it's like, how does that make sense at all? And then like that's just like Niagara, but if you look at some of the bigger cities like if you look at some of the bigger cities like Vancouver, it is now the third most expensive housing market in the world. And that's by comparing the median income to the median housing prices. And it's like, how do you even get ahead there? then you have like the UBS. UBS is like formerly it was the Union Bank of Switzerland, but now they're involved in like all the major financial activities. They found that in 2022, that Toronto was the worst housing bubble in the planet. So that alone is quite scary. And like when you compare those prices to other places in the world, like between Vancouver and Toronto, they're more expensive than like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, London, England, and even Singapore. And Singapore is an island, and it has 2,000 times more people per square kilometer than Canadians, and yet our housing in our major cities is more expensive. And I think that that is just absurd. So, the host of or the price of houses is one thing, but like what that actually means is like you look at like the mortgage debt that we have in Canada. Mortgage debt in Canada is more than any of the other G7 countries, and like that's just crazy. We have the most mortgage debt by far. And like you can picture a world where, maybe there's a lot less demand in housing for whatever reason, or we're miraculously able to build a lot of houses or something like that. It means a lot of Canadians are going to be in a lot of trouble. And it really doesn't make sense. The other thing is like we spend way more on residential investment than any of the other OECD, and that's like an organization for economic cooperation and development. So there's 38 countries involved in the OECD. So when you compare what the GDP is of like where our GDP comes from and all of that stuff in Canada, housing represents 9% of our GDP, which is crazy. Everywhere else, like everywhere else in the OECD, the average is about 4%. So we're spending more than twice as much and we're building fewer homes. Like it really doesn't make any sense. So I really don't know how we have the fewest homes per capita of any other country in the G7, even though we have more land, we have more land and we're spending more than everyone else. So it really doesn't make sense. And like the last point to hit home on would be that we have like when you have a house that's being built in Vancouver, do you know what the number one cost is? It's not land, it's not labor, and it's not lumber. It's permits. It's 60% of homes being built in Vancouver. So the 40% of your house that you're paying for is going to the land, the lumber, the all the work. The other 60% is going to some level of the government. And it's just like, that's not sustainable. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. And I think people are really starting to realize that and are getting sick. So not only are we spending way more to gain a benefit, like an investment benefit for some of these homes, that now when we end up selling it, we're getting taxed at six, almost 2/3 of your profit. So, between all that, it's just, yeah, things aren't really adding up to me.
No, it's discouraging, man. It's discouraging to for any business owner, any entrepreneur, anyone that wants to you know, do business in Canada. Like I love Canada. I'm an immigrant here. I moved here with my family when I was a baby, and it's been amazing. I have no complaints about just like my upbringing here. I love Halifax, especially too. Obviously, the weather is decent compared to other parts of the country. The people are nice. Canadians are just nice people all across the board too, relatively speaking. So like, there's a lot going on here that's great. Peaceful country. Um, but there's just a couple of things, and they're important. But if they were fixed, it could really help this country out a lot. And it starts at the top, at the end of the day. And the leadership's kind of controls everything, and all the okay. So obviously we've been talking here the last 10 minutes, kind of crapping on the government. They've done some good things. They've tried anyway. Like they released a thing there a couple weeks back where it was like they're trying to promote development, so they're trying to um they're gonna allocate some money to give to build, obviously, but then it was to decrease the taxes of developers. Some people saw this and like they were up in arms. They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh no, you need to tax these guys." I'm like, "No, this is perfect. This is what I've been saying from the get go. You need to incentivize builders to build faster, single family homes, not just condos, right? Or you know what? Even if they are condos, whatever, just build. We need housing for people, and cutting taxes for them, even if in the short term it might seem like they're just making the rich richer, and people that have any type of socialist mindset would be upset with this. I think this is an awesome idea. I think you have to incentivize builders to build more and faster, because like you said, there are so many things that makes developing expensive. Whether so the permits and stuff, for one, if they can like cut back on those, that would be amazing. That would save the developers off that. So now they have more cash to go build some more. Um, Obviously, interest rates, they're very high. That's kind of that's squashing a lot of development, especially smaller scale developers that can't just kind of handle this burn. And as the rates come down, hopefully that kind of helps. But um, yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know what can happen. It's like it's such a balancing act. They need to decrease um, interest rates for a lot of things to happen, but then the taxes have to come down, man. Even like in Nova Scotia where we live, I think we have the highest taxes in the country, and like we most certainly do not have the highest wages. So it's like, what do we do? So a friend of mine, he went out to Alberta not long ago, and he bought a car, and just he saved like 10% just off the top, just because he bought it in Alberta and then drove it back. There's 6% tax versus our 15%. So I don't know. It's tough, man. It's tough. It's tough out here as entrepreneurs. That's the big reason why me and you went down south. That's why we're kind of buying apartments down there, looking at businesses down there. It's just they're more business friendly down in America. America is more entrepreneurial minded. They promote development. They promote. That's why their housing prices are so low too, because they want people to build. Like if you take a look at Texas, how many apartment buildings they're building every single year, it's crazy because their population is growing, so they need to pump out the inventory, and they are. And this keeps prices low, and this keeps rent low. People wonder why rent's so expensive because there's such scarcity. If there was let's say double the amount of rental units in Halifax right now, do you think rent would stay the same? Of course it wouldn't. It would go down, and we just need to build more. But it's tough. They're making it tough to build.
Yeah. I would wager to say that I would say most of our listeners, when scrolling on their phones, on Instagram or something, that have some interest in real estate, obviously, have seen some of these gorgeous mansions that they have down in Texas that here in Nova
Yeah.
Scotia would probably be $4 million, $3 million, worst case $2 million, and they're beautiful. They're all marble, new appliances, for 40,000 square feet, whatever it is, and they're listed for like $500,000, and it's just like, what like, how does that make any sense? And yet that's the world we're living in. And then yeah, for us it's same deal. It was looking at the price of an apartment building, and we looked at what we have available here and what we have available down in the States. Like here, for $4 million to get kind of a rundown building, you'd probably get, call it like 50 units, maybe less. And down there we can get over double that. And it just, yeah, it's tough. So yeah, any other closing thoughts on that before we move to talking about our investments in the States?
I think 4 million for a 50 unit in Canada would be an unreal steal. The prices here just are
Yeah,
ridiculous.
let's
Yeah.
say, yeah, we'll say 25.
Yeah,
Yeah, now that I think
definitely.
about it.
and like a
Yeah.
fixer upper 25 where all the rents are like $700 and it's going to be a pain in your butt. That's the kind of deal you're getting.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we can shift gears. So we've been working on this 97 unit building obviously for the past month or so, and even longer in the background. You guys wouldn't even understand how many different models that Ian has kind of made regarding different underwriting strategies and different ways we should attack this project. But with that being said, Ian, I'll let you take it away and just kind of give the people some updates.
Yeah. So I guess biggest updates now. So we're in the process of getting all of our lending in order. So that's the other thing. Down in the States, we had multiple options. We have some really cool programs that you wouldn't see here, and that's again that's the system they have built down there is encouraging people to try and do this type of stuff. So we have one model scenarioed out where we essentially could do this deal. We could buy the property. We could put maybe $2.5 million into the renovation side of things, and it would only cost us, like, we'd only have to raise maybe $1.5 million. So we're controlling, 6-7 million dollars for just having to put up $1.5 million, and it's like you would never see that on a product up here in Canada. Ultimately, that's a bit of a more risky strategy for us, so we're going with a more conservative approach. So still modeling out a number of different ways that we can continue to do that, and still be nice and conservative with how we're doing things. But yeah, diving into the more detailed points with our lenders, we're seeing some cool ways that they can help control a deal. So if things aren't going as well as forecasted, they have methods to step in. So one that we went in a little bit more detail last week was they have what's called a lockbox. Agree or a condition or a lockbox, something that, I guess, provision in our agreement. And what that is it's basically if our rent, so if our debt yield falls below a 4%. And so what the debt yield is your net operating income in comparison to the amount of money that you have lent. So it's your ratio between how your building's operating and how much money you're borrowing to do the deal. If at any point it falls below 4%, and we would have to fall off, we'd have to lose approximately a third of our current rents to trigger something like that. But what happens then is the lenders will actually step in, and all of your rents, all of your operating funds, everything now, instead of going to us, goes to our lender. And then our lenders will make the choices on who gets paid first. Though they're going to pay the taxes and make sure the mortgage is paid, and insurance, those types of things, and then pay things out. And if anything's left over, then it makes it's way back to us. So I thought that was a pretty cool provision. Instead of just like not qualifying people and just not doing the lending deal, they're putting in a provision that says you guys can still move ahead with this project, but if things aren't trending in the right direction, we have the authority to step in and fix the deal. So again, instead of just giving us like a no from this one lender, they just want to put in a provision to help protect their money. And yeah, not anything I've seen here, but it was definitely interesting to see how that works. Yeah, Manny, what are your thoughts on that?
Man, I think it's pretty wise of the lender. Obviously, they're lending us a lot of money, so they need to have something in place for themselves to feel secure, just in case we totally crap the bed and we do a terrible job at what we're supposed to do. So it makes perfect sense to me, and I'm okay with it, especially if they're giving us the terms that they're kind of giving us, and we're comfortable with our ability to kind of execute on the business plan. And on that front, one thing that I like that we've done over the past week or so is at the start, there were ways we could tackle this deal and it would be somewhat highly leveraged. And then in turn, the returns would have been substantial. They would have been absolutely incredible. There was a little bit more risk involved, though, of course, when you're that leveraged. And, we took a step back and we kind of thought about what's been going on in the real estate investing world over the past 3-4 years. And we know a lot of people that were highly levered in their returns, and obviously, like, they looked really great. But fast forward a couple of years, if everything then doesn't go perfectly accordingly to plan, they're hurting. They're in trouble. That's when
Yep.
defaults happen, bankruptcies happen. So we took a step back and we said, okay, we do not want this to happen. We want to de-risk this. We buy real estate because we preach it to be the most risk-averse asset because we have all the control. And us going about it in the riskiest manner just to kind of go after the best return imaginable is kind of counterproductive and counterintuitive. So we took a step back and we're going after a little bit more of a conservative route. And this conservative route is still a good deal. The numbers are still very solid. They're not like, holy smokes, this is a grand slam of a deal. Like anyone would be stupid not to get involved, but they're still great. They'd beat any other investment. So I am very happy with the route that we decided to take on that. Less leverage, using more of our own cash. The raise went up a little bit, and the returns went down a bit, but it's still a great deal, and now it's safer. And now it's safer for our not only us but our investors, the people that are investing into our deals. So I think that's the kind of the route that we will probably continue to go on in the future. Like with this being highly, highly levered, it's usually not the best case. Sometimes it can, depending on your situation and how liquid you are. Like if we had $4 or $5 million like somewhere in our bank accounts, we're like, okay, we can take a crap shot at this one, highly lever it, and if it goes poorly, we have cash to kind of just back it up. Then we could go down that route, but we're not quite in that position yet. Maybe someday. But yeah, I don't know. I think we're on the right path, and this week will be a big week for us, and then hopefully next week everything will be kind of secured, and we'll have everything in place, and we'll be able to share more with you guys because this is a smoking deal. It's really cool. I think me and Ian discussed it. Like when we got into real estate, like I always envisioned myself owning a building of this nature, just something substantial, not a duplex, triplex, or even like a 20 unit. Honestly, our Carnegie building, the 24 unit, that's along those lines because the building's so large. But like the unit count of this one being 97, 7 stories, elevator, all that cool stuff. I think it's pretty sweet, and I'm sure we'll have webinars and stuff like that to kind of talk people through it. And I actually had a friend of the podcast, Mel, message me. She's like, "Take my money." I'm like, "What? What do you mean? Take your money for what?" She's like, she just heard our podcast on this 97 unit, and she's eager to kind of follow us along the process of buying a building of this size. Because I don't think there's a few people that are doing it, Ian. Like obviously Marcin, he's doing big stuff down in the States. But besides like him, I don't know many Canadians that are actually doing what we're doing at scale, and like publicly talking about it and
But
giving the secrets, all these little things.
yeah, no, I agree. It's yeah, when I had a question recently, I was able to reach out to Nick Skelkos, who's part of that deal, and basically we can just compare notes a little bit, like, hey, how do you guys do this? And then it's like, oh well, how do we do this? So it's yeah, it's interesting stuff, and it's starting to definitely take form of like a different beast. Like these 12, 38 unit buildings that we own already, or sorry, 24, 38 unit building we're owning. uh yes, they're not like going through like a crazy transformation. Like, yeah, they need some work, obviously, with bringing the rents up, all this stuff, but we're talking, a couple $100,000. Whereas now we're in the realm of like, yeah, we got to spend millions of dollars, and it, gets the value of this building way up. So it's a much bigger swing. And I definitely enjoy that we are doing it in the most conservative ways possible. Like, as Manny mentioned, we've modeled this 100+ different ways, and now our numbers are really dialed back. Like, our expectations are really dialed back. But our execution is, we're going to go in and we're going to hit this thing as hard as we possibly can, and see where we land. But yeah, it's nice to see that, like, the worst case scenario, or in quotations worst case scenario, still a good deal. So yeah, I've really enjoyed seeing that side of it, and now it's yeah, we're just getting closer. This part of the process is fun. We're still very much so being part. Like just forecasting things, doing our due diligence, all that good stuff. But I'm very much so looking forward to the day where it's like, all right, you know, let's go, and then it's really getting things going. But yeah, last few months for us, it's like we scaled up to this. So it's had this been the first deal we wanted to buy, I don't think we quite would have been ready, just because there's so many factors, so many people, so many things going on. Whereas now we've laid the foundations with proper systems, proper communication channels, who's doing what, and making sure everyone's working together, doing their own thing, and just moving it all in the right direction. So yeah, setting up our communication channels has been huge. Setting up the information the property managers is communicating to us. Yeah, and yeah, Manny and I, we looked at each other early in the process, and we bought the 24, the 38, the other 38, and we're like, well, we know like this is just the beginning. Like we're just getting warmed up, and now it's nice to start feeling the next step starting to materialize. So
100%. And just one thing you mentioned there about it's a good thing if we bought this building first. Like, think about the little mistakes that we've made with Carnegie, how like much more exponential they would be on this 97 unit. So it's good
yeah,
on a smaller scale. That's why sometimes it's not a bad idea to start buying small duplexes, triplexes, and then work your way up, because the mistakes that you make on these multi-million-dollar buildings, it can get very expensive, and it can be very dangerous. So you have to make your mistakes when they're not as detrimental to your investment, because at the end of the day, like this big deal, obviously now we have cushion, like there's room to make small errors, but like we're dialed in, we know
yeah,
what kind of errors that can be had because we've already made the mistakes, and now hopefully this one is much more smooth, and I'm sure things will pop up. And that's where entrepreneurs like us, that's where it's our job to kind of brainstorm and take care of the problems and kind of move on. But yeah, if we made those same mistakes that we made on Carnegie on here, we would be in a pickle.
yeah, very much so. But that's part of it. That's the fun. That's fail forward.
Exactly, exactly. Well, on that note, guys, I want to thank you all for listening to another episode of the Refined Real Estate Podcast. Like I said at the start of the episode, please give us a like, share, subscribe. Quick little plug for Ian: if you need a mortgage broker or a real estate agent in Nova Scotia, please give him a shout. Instagram, I think his cell phone number is on all of the platforms, so you can give him a call or text. You need somebody like him that has his expertise in your corner, especially whether you're in our market already or if you're investing from out of market, even more so. But yeah, with that, guys, I want to thank you again for listening, and we will see you guys next week.